afternoon, folks, and welcome to another program of the Veterans Forum. These shows, as you know, come to you from the Pittsfield Community Television station here in Pittsfield. Today, for the record, is the 29th of July, the year 2008. The years are going by fast, aren't they? Today's guest is another special guy, we think. His name is John Morse, as in the code. John, would you introduce yourself again, please? Spell your last name and then tell us where you live, the dates of service, and the branch of service, please.
Fine. John Morse, M-O-R-S-E. I reside in Stockbridge. I served in the U.S. Navy from 1957 through 1961 at various locations, none of which were at sea or overseas.
Good. So you're a land-loving sailor then?
Landlocked.
Huh? Landlocked, like salmon. Okay, now that gets us up to date, but to kind of build a program, if you will, could we go back a bit as to where and when were you born, what was life like as a kid, and what do you remember that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I was born in Chicago, Illinois. Lived there for the first year of my life. From there, moved to Chappaqua, New York, paving the way for the Clintons, who followed many, many years later.
Did they buy your house?
They did not buy the house. Another year of my life was spent there, after which we moved to Eastchester, New York, which is a suburb in Westchester County, about 18 miles north of New York City, and lived there through high school and on into college with mom and dad and a sister who was 2 years my junior.
Well, getting back a bit,
yeah.
When you're talking about school, what sort of schooling was in high school? Was it college prep, that kind of thing,
yeah,
technical, or?
I did graduate from Eastchester High School in their New York State Regents program, and went on from there to a state school up in Alfred, New York, which I did not excel at academically, but did so with honors socially.
Good man.
Yes, and it was from that point that I entered the Navy.
Okay. What was your major in school or in college?
I wasn't there long enough to really establish a major, but electrical technology is what I recall was the field that I had signed up for.
Okay. And did you get your wish?
I did not get my wish.
Okay, join the ranks.
Did not last long enough.
Okay. Now, when in fact did you enter the Navy, and were you enlisted or were you drafted?
I enlisted in the Navy, and my recollection, it was in 1957, and it was in the fall. No, I'm sorry, it was in the spring of 1957. I enlisted, and I spent my basic training at Bainbridge, Maryland, which was one of the three large boot camps, if you will, for the Navy. The other one being Great Lakes, and one out on the West Coast, I think in San Diego. That was an interesting stint. Difficult because you're never, if you don't come from that kind of a life, it's kind of tough to get pulled out of your sack at 4 in the morning, and along about noon, when you think it's dinner time, you still have many hours to go.
Oh yeah, the road never ends.
And but I got through it, and you keep your mouth shut and do what you're told, and you get through okay. Yeah. There were others who didn't do that and paid the consequences. Oh, yeah. From basic training, I was then sent to the Naval Air Technical Training Command School in Norman, Oklahoma, where I had choices of very few opportunities after that in the Naval Air area, simply because I have a color deficiency problem with red-green. So any aspirations perhaps to get into flying, I could not do.
Oh, color blindness, or?
Well, it's not really color blindness, but color perception problems with red-green, blue, yellow, and so forth. one of the areas that was available to me was in the Naval Weather Service. They called it aerographer. I still don't know what that term means other than perhaps meteorologist, but it is associated with.
But you were one.
I was one. I finished the school in Oklahoma and then was transferred to Lakehurst, New Jersey, where the aerographer's school was, specifically for those that are destined to become meteorologists, weathermen, aerographers.
Okay, that's the AG back here.
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you. I've learned a new word.
But you start out as just your basic rank, and I have to say I progressed rapidly, and in 2 years I became second-class petty officer. And just prior to being discharged in 61, I was told that I could become a first-class petty officer, and I think the reason there was they really wanted to keep me.
Good.
But I wanted to pursue a career and education, formal education in meteorology, and impressed them with that fact, so that the honorable discharge came forward, and I was out of the Navy in 61 and entered New York University for their meteorology program.
Okay. Now, stepping back just a minute, I always like to ask the guys this question. I shouldn't have got it in time. Why the Navy? Good point. I've never thought about that. I must have then, but I honestly don't know. Okay. I don't know. I think it was the join the Navy, see the world, which was an expression then and perhaps still is. And the idea of perhaps getting away and growing up and breaking the umbilical cord of home and getting out and becoming more independent, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, was appealing. And unfortunately, seeing the world never happened. Okay, well, it's still out there waiting for you. It is. I've seen a lot of it since. A good show. Now, in your training, is there any specifics that you could walk us through with respect to what you signed up for, what you got, and then how you in turn were trained to fulfill those requirements? Because everybody has a little different cut on what they do and how they did it. Yeah, I guess maybe one way to answer that would be the opportunities from the aerographer's school that were available, certainly sea duty. One of the areas that I had aspired to eventually spend some time with was on an aircraft carrier. Okay. In the meteorology or weather area in that. I also volunteered for duties in extremes of Thule, Greenland, for example, Port Leoti, North Africa. These were part of my wish list. And as was that a death wish? No, well, no, it was just something that sounded exciting to me, and I wanted to do. The wish list, don't know what they did with it, but they certainly didn't act upon it, because I ended up in Washington, D.C. for the final 2 years of my career. Oh, help me give the politicians the line. Yeah, that was an interesting experience, though. It was at a Fleet Weather Central, just outside of Washington, D.C., in the same building that the U.S. Weather Bureau, as they were known at the time, was upstairs from us. But there was, I believe, each morning there were closed-circuit TV weather broadcasts to the Joint War Room at the Pentagon. I know that there were briefings to the White House on occasion when they required it. We supplied the 6th Fleet, I believe that's the Atlantic Fleet, daily with facsimile maps, weather maps and forecasts and so forth, and we also tabulated and analyzed data incoming from around the world. Wow. In preparation for weather forecasting. So they kept you pretty busy coming in. It was busy and it was fun. Good. Yes. Anything but any one particular or two, if you have them, incidents that kind of stand out in your career like that?
No.
Okay, good answer.
Sorry, I can't think of anything that particularly stands out. Backing up a little bit, if I may, and
Sure.
from a human nature, human interest point of view, but back in boot camp where you meet just a myriad of people. I mean, they come from every walk of life. And two things that I vividly recall. One was a fella from rural Tennessee who obviously came from a family that didn't have much income. That was my conclusion. And each time we went through the chow line, he would take these pads of butter and he would put them in some sort of a little container, and he would bring them back to the barracks and he would wrap them up to send them home.
For real?
For real.
A care package going the other way.
To go in the other way, because obviously his family, again, conclusion that his family couldn't afford a lot of staples like butter. So he was sending that home until he was found out, and not that they just politely told him that he shouldn't do that.
That's a no-no.
Couldn't do it, right. The other incident I remember, it's not really a pleasant one, but again, all walks of life. There was a fella in the company that had come from a very affluent suburb of Philadelphia. I don't remember the town, but I do remember that it was a suburb of Philadelphia. And tried his best to become one of the guys and be popular and so forth, and he was having all kinds of struggles with that, and I think also just the rigor and routine of basic training. And one day they found him underneath the barracks with his wrists slashed. I'll quickly say that he survived and he was discharged, but that sticks with me as
well, those are two diametrics, aren't they?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, that's always been the fun when I'm talking with some of the other guys. No matter what branch of the service you were in, it seemed, whether it was just Hollywood or not, I don't know, but you had one guy, as you will, from Tennessee, and some kid who had a service of silver, not just a spoon, and then gradations in between, all trying to meld together. And the thing that is amazing, somewhere, somehow, each of the different people would find a common ground, or a buddy or a pal, and you just locked in. And now, to that point, it's long over now, but have you kept in touch with any of those guys as you work, either in boot camp or in your regular assignment?
No, I really haven't. And you hit on something that was fascinating. And again, you knew no one in boot camp, and there were at least 50 to 60 in the barracks. And over that, again, 10-week period, I don't recall how long basic training was, but it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 weeks. How you got to know each other, fairly intimately in terms of character and so forth, and how you all work together to achieve the purpose and make the company commander look good, and all of that stuff. And I think back on that and I said, wow, it's really human nature, and it's fascinating. It's just fascinating.
Well, when you did go in, and I keep reverting back to boot because it seems to be a good building block, how did you feel from civilian life coming into this is what you shall do, this is the hour in which you'll do it, and these are the number of things you'll do? Did you get any problem? Have any problem getting acclimated or accepting it or challenging it?
Well, it wasn't pleasant necessarily. I mean, 4 o'clock in the morning, that's when you got up, and it became a long day. I think 7 or 8 o'clock at night you were in the sack, but that was welcome.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, and as I said before, if you keep your nose clean and you do what you're told, you can get through it, and that's what I did. And I just that struck me as what to do. Someone had told me that.
Oh yeah.
And I let the other guys, the wise guys and the smart Alex and so forth, they're the ones that got in trouble. Unfortunately, we all paid the price.
Oh yeah, well that's it. You're a company of 50 guys.
That's right.
One guy louses up, 49 pay
That's
for it
exactly
too.
correct. That's exactly
But they
correct.
say, in retrospect, that probably helps build a cohesive unit, because everybody knows that I've got 40 other guys or whatever. I got to keep them.
It certainly does, because that carries forward into your career in the service. Because if you get on a ship, for example, and particularly a small one, the need for that cohesiveness is more paramount.
Oh yeah, our life will be hell.
Yep.
Technical term.
Yep.
Okay. Well, trying to figure where do we really handle this thing? In all of the training that you've done, has any of it been able to, if you will, follow you through and influence anyway how you've developed your life after service? Or is that a loaded question?
No, it's not loaded. It is, but it isn't.
Thank you.
I think the discipline of human relations, human nature, working with people, seeing what can result from all of that, the synergies involved, all plays a part later on as you go through college, which I did after the service.
Okay.
And then on into a career at different businesses and so forth, and then life and marriage and children and so forth. So yeah, it played a part.
Would you want to expand on some of that? Like, say, when you were through with the service, did you then take advantage of the GI Bill, for example?
I didn't, because I don't believe it was available then. I think they had...
Oh? I'm dating myself.
No, well, okay. I don't recall it as being available, because I did go to New York University for their undergraduate program, and then eventually to get a degree in meteorology, which I did.
Good.
But I may have applied for a GI Bill, and for whatever reason it was not available, or I didn't qualify, or what have you.
Because that was the biggest stepping stone that ever happened to me and all the other guys. It made life a possibility. Right? Now, after college, did you keep in contact with these guys? Did you join any veterans organization like DAB, the American Legion, what have you?
I did not. And again, to pick up on a question you asked before and just now about staying in touch with any of these fellows, I lost touch with everyone. And there are some photos that I have still at home of the group. And there was one or two that I was particularly friendly with that I only maybe within the past 5 years tried to look up again. I knew their hometowns, but struck a blank. Yeah. Struck a blank. I think it would be interesting to resurrect that friendship.
Oh,
see what would happen, but I have no idea.
Well, I'll digress in a minute, but we had an interview a couple of weeks ago, a guy named John Whalen from down in Tyringham. His granddaughter, somewhere, somehow, had got some kind of I'll call it a mailing list of different branches of the service, different activities. And if you're alive and well, give us your bio, where you are and what you're doing. And she entered his name, and nothing happened. And then, I guess maybe 6 or 8 months later, you got a call from some guy down in Texas. He was the pilot of John's B-25, and they flew about 45 or 50 missions together. And out of nowhere, 64 years later, they got together. We gave him a copy of his interview, and he hand-delivered it, he said. And when he came back, he said, the first thing I did, and I'm happy to say this, he said, I want to thank you. Because it really, he said, those guys got together. And you never know where, when, or how. But those guys back there, as you said, they're part of your life and your livelihood. Now, when you emerged into the real world, what did you do for a living, if I may, as far as family, kids, and all that good stuff?
That's fine. Interestingly, I graduated from New York University in 1965 with a degree in meteorology. And back in that time period, the Weather Bureau, if you will, as it's now known as the National Weather Service, but the Weather Bureau at the time was the largest employer of anybody who graduated with a degree in meteorology. The television stations were just coming into their own, and some of the other entities that now employ meteorologists extensively didn't exist. I had, shortly after graduation from college in '65, that was in June, and in November I got married. And my wife, I was offered 2 positions with the U.S. Weather Bureau. One was in Phoenix, Arizona. The other was in Helena, Montana. She very politely said that I hope you enjoy it because I'm not going. Yeah, she was very adamant about not wanting to.
And either one or just any particular one?
Either one.
Oh.
So I had to rethink some things, and as it turned out, I never spent a day in the business of what I got my degree in, meteorology. I got into the business world. Started out with a glass container manufacturer, and then got into the foods business in various marketing management positions. Along the career was Beechnut and Borden and Welch's, the grape juice company in upstate New York, and then back in 1978 made a career change and joined Merrill Lynch.
Oh, the money boys.
And spent 25 years there, and retired in '03. The last 3 years of which were spent up here in the Pittsfield office.
Good.
And I've been happily retired since '03.
You're working at it very well.
I'm enjoying the volunteer activities that I do.
Good. And you know that my bride and I appreciate your help. Tell the folks what you did as a volunteer.
Well, I'm involved with a number of things. First of all, I'm on the finance committee. I guess starting in the fall will be my sixth year with the finance committee of the town of Stockbridge. I also, through AARP, one of the volunteers for the income tax assistant program. That's how we met.
Oh, yes.
I am a volunteer with the Berkshire Scenic Railway during their season from May through October.
Are you a conductor, an engineer, brakeman?
No, I wear a number of other hats, but none of them operational.
Oh.
It's promotion, it's internet, it's statistician, it's information giving, it's helping parking, it's assisting the ticket agent, all kinds of things.
Good.
Just to be involved, it's fun.
Yeah. It could be a lot of fun too, isn't it?
It is.
Do you ever take the ride, or just as a...
I do it, yes.
Every once in a while?
Yeah, just jump on, and I need to do that. I've had an interest in trains and railroads since I was probably 2 years old.
Great.
Yeah.
Have you ever ridden any of the mountain railroads out in the west, Nevada and Colorado and that?
Never those.
Oh.
Never those. But I'd like to see some of them, particularly the steam operations that are out there still.
It's a weird feeling, like you, I guess a lot of other guys. I was saying choo-choo before I could say daddy, I think. But it was a great deal.
Yep.
And that's it. Well, why don't we take a peek at some of the goodies that you have right here. I will hold the ones you want me to, and then you can do your own explanation. And I think we can give you a real good shot on the camera to get a real close-up if you want.
Well, everyone who enlists and is sent to boot camp gets this beautiful photo of themselves taken and sent home to mom.
Oh.
And I look at that and laugh.
Yeah, who's that? One of your brothers? Okay, can do it without flashing on you? Pretty good, Jeff? There you go.
Back in those days, I wasn't much of a physical specimen. If I turned sideways, people couldn't see me. But the service put some weight on me, and that helped quite a bit.
Great.
The other mementos I keep, and I'm not sure why, but I do. I have 2 receipts from tickets to the Oklahoma football game with Kansas, and one from Iowa back in 1957 at a cost of $3.50 a ticket, which days gone by for those prices.
Oh, amen.
The story behind the tickets were the Naval Air Technical Training Command base where I was stationed was adjacent to the campus of the University of Oklahoma.
Okay.
So we were able to get tickets as we needed them. The memory there was that in 1957, the University of Oklahoma had the longest winning streak of any college team in the nation historically, a 47-game winning streak. Upcoming was a game with Notre Dame. I had tickets for that game, and very much looking forward to it, obviously. Notre Dame was a powerhouse that year also. The day before the game, I got shipped out.
Oh, God.
So I missed the game. And it turned out to be a Notre Dame win. I believe it was 6-0, and Paul Hornung, who spent his professional career with the Green Bay Packers, was the one who scored the touchdown. But I had to read about all that since, unfortunately, I was en route to Washington, D.C. and missed the game.
So those are real chaplain shits then, huh?
So, yeah, that was... And I guess the other one that I find interesting is when I was discharged, I flew home from Washington National Airport, which is now known as Reagan Airport, and I flew first class, and American Airlines, which is still in business, and the fare for first class one way, Washington to New York, was all of $17.
Wow.
Can't do that today.
No.
Not even Southwest is going to get you down to those kind of levels. But another piece of memento I found in this ticket voucher was I was charged for 9 pounds of excess baggage weight, an additional 72 cents. Which I find laughable simply because today they charge you to
15 or 20 bucks a bag.
Just to pack a bag, or just to check one in, but I paid 72 cents to have excess baggage shipped, but in any event.
Did you ever contest it and ask for your money back? Now, this is after you were discharged on the way home?
This was my flight home following discharge, yes.
Oh, okay. So Sam must have paid for that then as your point to discharge too, or did you have to
so. I think they gave you money, as I recall, but I don't. Is that? I honestly I don't remember. But in any event, $17 to fly first class.
That's not too shabby. This is a goodie here.
This is a photo of the aerographer's school, or the weather school that I attended in Lakehurst, New Jersey, was also the home for the dirigibles, which the Navy used extensively in particularly World War II, and they would fly out over the water and look for submarines. That was their primary purpose.
Okay.
It was also the airfield where the Hindenburg crashed back in the mid to late 30s, yeah. We referred to these affectionately as rubber bombers. It's a silicone rubber shell, and they did carry some bombs when they were out over the water.
That must have been pretty tricky, trying to go up and down. No. Somebody must have done it. Okay, that's great.
Yep.
Wonderful.
So, this is just a promotional to my second class, formal document.
Absolutely. So you're well documented and happy. Now, not as a wrap-up, but just has as we talked about a little bit before, your recollection of your time in the service, has it been a positive, negative, or, as you said, a neutral reaction?
Yeah, I said neutral before when you asked that question. It certainly wasn't a negative. I mean, there were things I took away from there that perhaps I didn't consciously realize but were working positively for me. Mm-hmm. But I didn't see it as one of those hugely uplifting, influential aspects of 4 years out of my life influencing the rest.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why. Perhaps it was I hate to use the term, but soft duty. I mean, it was my first year and a half were just schools, and then the second, the last 2.5 were down in Washington, D.C., and basically an office building, and we lived on a base, but had no affiliation with the activities of the base other than just to reside there. So I kind of had it easy.
You got a transit guest then.
Yeah. So.
Well, okay. Now, Is there anything you'd like to offer to the guys and gals who may be listening out there as far as would you recommend that some of these guys and gals join the service for nothing else than just the necessity of learning how to live life?
Yeah, I would, and I guess I'd, to build character, because I think it does do that. Depending, of course, where you eventually end up beyond the basic training phase. If you're fortunate enough to get in and to either, well, any of the branches, but I think particularly the Air Force and the Navy, opportunities to get stationed pretty much anywhere in the world. Yep. It's got to be just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And if you're just kind of lost, academically, educationally, you're not sure where you want to go, you're searching, you're trying to find yourself, service can help you along those lines. Because
they have a myriad of occupations and jobs and what have you, that somewhere they'll find a match.
Yeah. That's right. And then, of course, if you excel at it and certainly like it, you can parlay that into a career once you're out of the service.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm. Great. Mm-hmm. Well, I say thank you.
Well,
it's been short and sweet, but again, folks, this is another view of what some of the guys have done and had to do. Now, I'm going to take a couple of seconds of your time. There seems to be, best way to put it, some confusion as to the kinds of people that we're asking the veterans. I've been told a lot of times that, boy, that's a great show, but why is it just for World War II? Mm-mm. Loud and clear. This, we're asking for any guy or gal who served in any branch of any of the services in any war. Frankly, we have had nobody come forward who was in Korea. I've had one or two people who had a couple of stints at Nam, one Desert Shield. The rest have been World War II guys. But the thing that I'm trying to, if you will, promote, and I know that Dick Nichols up in Dalton is the same way, particularly the guys in World War II. Statistically, they were told sometime that there were some 16 million guys and gals who served during World War II. The latest statistic right now, they're dying off at the rate of better than 1,200 to 1,500 a day. We're an endangered species, but before I have to read or someone reads of me having been a member or was a veteran, come on and tell us your story, because if you don't, nobody else will, and we want to see if we can fill in as much of that puzzle as we can. You know the name, you know the face, you know the address. We'll make it as pleasant as we can. Thank you, John.
You're quite
and thank
welcome.
you for watching, folks. Come back and see us, please. Everybody.